So I've had this video idea for a while, some of y'all even suggested it to me before, and I was gonna wait till all the Taylor's versions were out before doing this, but that's pretty much the case now since, as you probably heard, Taylor Swift officially owns all of her original masters, meaning the Taylor's version project has essentially come to a close. In the letter that Taylor posted to her website announcing the buying back of her albums, she did mention that she finished re-recording Debut, so we might still get those, and we may get some Reputation Vault tracks in the future if we would be into that, which, like, Taylor girl, come on. But I do believe the 4 Taylor's version projects that we have gotten so far are the only ones that are going to have their own dedicated projects and even eras, so to say, the way that they did. So I figured now would be the perfect time to revisit these 4 Taylor's version albums and rate them. And when I say that these 4 albums were like eras of their own, I really mean it. I mean, Red Taylor's version was itself more of an era than the Tortured Poets Department was. I have vivid memory of when each of these came out, what the vibes were at the time, what she teased going into the era, how it was announced, listening to the vault tracks for the first time. Every piece of these albums feels just as vivid to me as like any of her other eras that I've been around for, at least as a fan. And I think that's just a testament to how good Taylor Swift is at constructing eras, at really getting you excited about a release. Now, it's really important to understand, as with other kind of remix ranking style videos I've done in the past, this is not just about ranking the albums as they are. This is more about ranking these projects as re-recordings and how successful they were as Taylor's version albums in particular. And there's 2 elements that comprise that. There's the re-recorded tracks and just the recreation of the era as a whole on one side of the scale, and the vault tracks on the other side. And I do think they kind of hold equal weight to each other. You know, on one hand, the vault tracks are the new material that often defines what everyone is talking about and what Taylor herself promotes most, you know, leading up to the album. However, in order to get to those vault tracks, you have to get through the entire album, and the way that she's re-recorded and recreated that era is often the most lingering impression that the entire album leaves on you after listening. So in that way, I kind of see them both as equal elements of the project, and that's what makes ranking these more interesting than just ranking the albums as they are, because again, I've already done that, and there's a lot more to talk about with these re-recording projects in particular. I have 2 quick disclaimers before we get into it. First, I might mention throughout the video times when I listened to the original stolen versions of the albums instead of the re-recordings. As I've said before, I do own all of the CDs of the old stolen versions. My family would buy them as they came out, we're all Swifties, so I can listen offline if I'd like, which I would do when I was craving those original tracks. But doesn't mean I was streaming stolen versions, alright? I've heard it's time to go, I've heard my tears ricochet, trust me, I understand it all. Swifties, don't come for me, I am on your side. The second quick disclaimer on the same note is that the point of this video is not to shame Taylor for any of her decisions or faults on the re-recordings. These albums are not their own studio releases. These are all re-recorded albums birthed out of a tremendous effort for Taylor Swift to reclaim what she rightfully owns. This entire project is bold, heartfelt, and game-changing, and I cannot stress just how much I truly do admire that. This video is a fun little ranking where we as fans get to put on our annoying caps and talk about all the little things we like and don't like. And yeah, I might have my share of complaints about certain re-recordings that I might talk about, but I especially want to stress here how important it is to keep that in mind, that this isn't a super serious critique of any of these projects. It's really just my own personal opinions, all in good fun and good faith. I understand and acknowledge that there was no way she could replicate all the exact little intricacies of the original albums she'd done almost 10 years prior, and I don't think it's very fair for us to expect that. So that's not the point of this video. That's all I want to clarify. Got it? With all of that out of the way, let's actually get into this. There's just 4 albums, so it shouldn't take very long. I've gone on record before to say that Speak Now Taylor's version mildly ruined the original album for me. And, well, that might have been a little bit dramatic. I swear I don't love the drama, it loves me. But I do still stand by the fact that this is the only Taylor's version I feel somewhat negatively about, or at least apathetic toward, kind of like a skip in a singer's discography. Speak Now Taylor's version within Taylor Swift's discography is like, what is one of her albums that only has one skip? Stay, Stay, Stay. No, that's a bit vicious. It's not really doing anything wrong, but I don't really care for it. And that's not really something I can say about the other Taylor's versions, because all of them do stand out to me in some way of their own. For whatever reason, more so than 1989, even more than Red, which I'll have a lot to say about that, This Taylor's version just kind of felt like it lost a lot of the charm and passion of the original. And it's hard to pinpoint one specific reason why, because when you look at the album, it's pretty solid. There's no sore thumb that sticks out. Overall, she did a good job, but at the same time, it's also nothing crazy to me either. Let's break this down a little further. When it comes to the re-recorded tracks, as I've gone into detail before, Speak Now is all about growing up. It's about maturing, being hurt and vulnerable in entirely new ways that you didn't imagine were possible because you were a child, transitioning from childhood and adolescence into true adulthood, all of which feels so deeply, deeply entangled with the Taylor Swift who is at the age appropriate to be singing about those things. She herself said that about the album, and this re-recording was a way for her to revisit those moments and consider how she, at age 32, is still growing up, which is certainly not something I'm going to deny her of. But like, there is something special about hearing these songs on the original album, you know, in her young, maturing voice, rather than as the already grown-up Taylor. I don't know if I'm explaining myself well here. I know for sure some of y'all are going to think that this is a super pretentious opinion or I'm analyzing too deep, but remember, I don't hate the album by any means. It's still solid. These are just the kinds of metrics I have to use in order to rank them, which again is the purpose of this video. Now let's look at the vault tracks, because ultimately, outside of all that fluff, the vault tracks do give us a concrete measurement of the project. The Speak Now vault tracks are pretty good, I do have to admit, but they're a bit all over the place. Which I know that's kind of the point with these. It's not meant to be telling a cohesive story like the albums themselves, it's just additional music she wrote at the time. But because of that lack of cohesion, it just didn't feel like it added a new, interesting color that made me want to come back to the album as a whole. You know, I might put the vault tracks that I like into a separate playlist, but that's just those individual songs. Think about the 1989 vault tracks and how those truly feel like a unit that brought something new to the album, that makes you want to revisit the entire project, you know? Speak Now vault tracks just kind of sit there. And ultimately, there's only two that I can say I really, really love: Electric Touch and Castles Crumbling. Yes, I know, what about I Can See You? What about Timeless? I'm sorry, but they honestly pale in comparison to the absolute bangers already present on the standard edition of the album. So combining those things, ultimately, you get an album that isn't bad, but it's just kind of mid. And I really don't mean to sound harsh because, as I've already said, and I'll continue to say, I understand these are re-recordings. They aren't designed to be as earth-shattering as, you know, a new release the way she does those. But this is a ranking video, so I might as well speak now or forever hold my peace. Haha, get it? Oh god, I'm definitely getting canceled. I will give Miss Speak Now Taylor's version this, however. The album cover is so good. The original is great, but like the purple dress is purple dressing here. Purple dressing. Can't really say the same about the other Taylor's version album covers, but I'm getting ahead of myself.
I've still got you all over me.
As with my discography rankings, if you've seen them, which you should go see them if you haven't seen them, when I go through each song one at a time, I also separate them into tiers. And usually I have a lot to say about the songs in the bottom tier, since I always feel the need to justify why they ended up there. But once we move up one tier to the songs I passively enjoy, I have much less to say about them since, well, I like them, but they're not my favorites. That is exactly the case here as well. I had a lot to say about Speak Now Taylor's version because I really wanted to clarify why I had somewhat mixed feelings about it. Fearless Taylor's version is essentially the next tier up. I like it, it's good, but it's not one that I come back to super often. I will admit upfront, this ranking is likely due to this album just not being a standout for me within Taylor's discography as is. I did say at the start this isn't an album ranking, but that does kind of make an impact already. Fearless is great, don't get me wrong, and while it cemented her place in country music, it doesn't really stick out to me as the most evolved version of her sound the way Red, 1989, Folklore, etc. might. But again, more on that in those other aforementioned videos. Right now we're focused on Taylor's version, which I do have to admit reignited a lot of love I had for this album that I forgot about. This was the first Taylor's version, so I think it automatically carried a lot of buzz around what this entire project would end up looking like, and so I was already pretty excited in that regard. But weirdly enough, on the entire contrary to Speak Now, one of the reasons I don't come back to Fearless very much is because her voice just doesn't sound very mature or full on it, and so hearing those songs in her newer grown-up voice actually enhanced them quite a lot for me. I don't think there's a clearer example than The Other Side of the Door, a song I paid nearly zero attention to before this project, and that quickly became one of my favorites from her entirely after Taylor's version. And again, that's so weird because it's like the entire 180 opposite for Speak Now. As I explained, it could have to do with the concept of the album, it could have to do with just how she sounds, but overall, I did really like the re-recorded tracks on Fearless Taylor's version. Similarly, the vault tracks I think are really great. They're very cohesive, and so I think they do a great job advancing the era. And again, there was a lot of excitement in this being our first ever time hearing Taylor Swift pull songs from her earliest days and bring them back into the light from the vault. And that excitement naturally, I think, carried over into how I perceived these tracks and thus felt and even still feel about them. Like Mr. Perfectly Fine at the end of the day is just a fun song like any other, but I do really associate it with that feeling of hearing old Taylor, back on the phone, which was truly just so exciting to see after seeing her come so far. But overall, the vault tracks still don't hit quite the same highs as the original album, and certainly compared to the rest of her discography, I mean, my favorite of them is Don't You, which doesn't even top my favorite Speak Now vault track. But with that said, this is still a very underrated batch of music in her discography. Like, put some respect on We Were Happy, put some respect on Bye Bye Baby. These are good songs. So yeah, ultimately, this album and era really didn't do anything wrong. If anything, it's the only Taylor's version project that didn't do anything wrong in the best sense of the word. But naturally, it still comes from an era that I just don't have a ton of passion for, if that makes sense. I don't know, again, that sounds kind of harsh, but that's why I put it in third place. It's a good ways ahead of Speak Now, Taylor's version, and I think if anything, it just barely misses the number 2 spot. This was a tremendous start to the project. Okay, here we go. I have been yearning to talk about this album for a long time because, well, to quote Lana Del Rey, I'm not that smart, but I've got things to say. I have a little bit of personal beef with Red Taylor's version, and you're going to hear some negatives, and you're going to wonder, okay, why is this ranked number 2? And you'll see, don't worry. But first, let me just rant for a second. When it comes to the re-recorded tracks on Red Taylor's version, they tried. But unfortunately, I just don't think they capture the same emotional highs and lows of the original Red album. And as I said before, I'm gonna keep saying it, I do not blame her for that. There is no physical way that she could have recreated the exact emotional contour and sound of these songs and relive those emotions exactly as they once were. And as I've said with Speak Now and Fearless, sometimes that discrepancy helps, sometimes it hurts. But I think for Red, it really sticks out more than any other album because Red is such an emotional and heartfelt album. It's honestly the same with Reputation. Like, yes, I was excited for Reputation Taylor's version and whatever, but I also knew it was never going to hit quite the same as the original album, and it's kind of comforting to see her acknowledge that too.
Not because he owns me, because he really knows. Travis grabbed my wallet.
But anyways, okay, so that's one thing, right? And similar to Speak Now, it's not really a reason to beef, because again, she is actively trying her best, even if it's not living up to my enormously high standards. The beef comes when we look beyond the album and look at the way that she pretty much entirely recreated the era. Red Taylor's version is a blasphemization of the original Red era and aesthetic. I don't know if that's a word, but I'm coining it now. It's a word. Red Taylor's version essentially turned Red into a seasonal album. And there are some albums that are explicitly seasonal where that works. Folklore is a summer album. Evermore is a winter album because we have explicit mentions of those seasons and of those aesthetics. But before Red Taylor's version, Red was never seasonal. It's an album about emotion and heartbreak and coming of age as a grown person, which is exactly why I love Red so much as an era and an album. All Too Well is the only song on Red to be seasonal, and it's literally just one lyric. But Red Taylor's version, The Era, was almost entirely about this song, mainly because of the short film she did for it, which was incredible and a huge step for her career. So naturally, since the whole era kind of focused on this and the short film, I think the entire era ended up being rebranded around Autumn very intentionally on Taylor's part. I was literally talking to one of my friends about this earlier, how Red, the original, is like 2012 hipster, emo, Tumblr aesthetic bundled up into an album in the messiest way possible, and that's kind of what makes it such an amazing album. You had Taylor Swift's typical country pop sound, but then you also had the dubstep in I Knew You Were Trouble, and you had the children's choir in We Are Never Ever Getting Back Together, and you had the sheer emotional devastation of All Too Well and The Last Time, and you had the party aesthetic of 22. Like, it was just this ginormous clusterfuck. But then Taylor's version just kind of says, nah, fuck that, we're or in a Chevy driving through the woods. And I know this is going to get me in trouble because everyone and their mother loves this album cover, but I just know there are some of y'all out there who see me on this and who agree I don't like this album cover. This is a seasonal album cover, but that has nothing to do with the album. And the worst part of it, what really got on my nerves, was the absolute slandering of All Too Well original 5-minute version after this album was released, with Swifties going as far as to say that it isn't a track worth listening to anymore. I'm sorry, what? The 10-minute version is great, of course. I love how she expanded the story. We all love Fuck the Patriarchy, exactly. But that doesn't change the beauty of the original track, which takes all of those emotional highs and lows, but bundles them concisely into this beautiful, emotional, delicious 5 minutes. Anyways, with all that said, I have a little bit of beef with Red Taylor's version, but these vault tracks, holy shit. Literally take out Run and you have a perfect run of tracks. Better Man, Nothing New, Message in a Bottle, The Very First Night. I mean, come on. Not to mention, of course, the long-awaited All Too Well 10-minute version, which, yeah, I have my issues with how it kind of recreated the era, but it's an amazing song. She was on it with these vault tracks. With Speak Now and Fearless, I said the vault tracks are good, but they don't stand out, and that's mainly because they don't seamlessly incorporate into the main project. You can kind of tell they were left off for a reason. I don't think you can say the same about the Red vault tracks though. They might not fit into the exact same storyline, but when it comes to quality, these songs easily shine a light to even the masterpieces, the best songs on Red, living up to and even exceeding the original album at times, which is an incredibly difficult thing to do with music that was intentionally left off of the album. All the things I laid out about the era were really just ways for me to rant. Ultimately, I do feel like the magic of these vault tracks, plus my inherent love and ride or die affection for this album, ultimately did overtake all of that pretentious personal beef that I had with the album. I think it would be kind of a dishonor to rank this any lower because, as much as I like to complain, I did come back to this album a lot when it first came out. I still come back to it, and really the magic is in those vault tracks. I mean, come on, I could go on and on about them. If these vault tracks weren't good, this would immediately be at the bottom of the list. And it's not like every single song is perfect, but they just reach those same emotional highs. They reach that same level of power that made me fall in love with Red in the first place. And that is why I do still like this album and I do still enjoy this project.
Was it over then? And is it over now?
I honestly don't know how y'all are going to feel about this being my number one of the Taylor's version albums, because for me, I feel like it was kind of a slam dunk, but I know it had its fair share of criticism. So in fact, before we get into the positives, I actually am going to start with the negatives about 1989 Taylor's version, because there aren't really that many, but I consider there to be like 3 deadly sins, so to say, or at least that I like to call them, that kind of prevented this era from being as perfect as I wanted it to. The first sin is Style Taylor's version. Now, Swifties, don't get all up in arms. It's okay to admit that this re-recording just didn't quite hit like the original. And here's the thing, I've already said it and I'm gonna say it again. This is not her fault. The sin is not that it didn't hit like the original. It was never going to hit like the original. I'm pretty sure whatever crack cocaine Taylor laced into the original style is fully out of stock now, because there are barely any other songs out there that have the same perfect, infectious pop production like this one. Ooh, Max Martin, the man that you are. The sin is more so what Style Taylor's version I think is reflective of with the album as a whole, which was overall a kind of weirdness with just how this album sounds. Like, ever so slightly. It's really not that far off from the original. I can complain all I want. You guys can complain all you want. I know y'all have complained before. There are just little things here and there that are a little weird and off from the original. There's the drums in Style. There's the harmonies in Out of the Woods. There's the children's choir in New Romantics. Like, just little things that overall taint the album ever so slightly. And I think Style is a good representation of that, because what the hell is going on with the drums here?
Out of style, you got them. Out of style, you got them, got them, got them.
The second major sin is the lack of a music video. Literally every other Taylor's version got way more promotion than this. Even fucking You All Over Me got more promotion than any of these vault tracks. Like, I get it, she was busy doing other things, she was preparing for TTPD, but come on! You gave us Slut, you gave us Is It Over Now? Any of these songs could have gotten a music video and it would have easily shattered the internet and also my soul. And this is less of a core issue with the album as much as it is something that I just think kind of held the era back as a whole. So, I can't take off too many points. But like, I know y'all know it too. If there was a music video, this era would have been unstoppable. And the third, now this one may be controversial, but you may have seen it coming based on how long I went on and on about Red, is actually the album cover. This is not a beach album. I'm sorry. The opening track is called Welcome to New York. This album exists in the clubs, in the city lights, and on skyscraper rooftops. Where in this album do we see beach? If you search the word beach within Taylor Swift's entire discography, you don't get a single 1989 song. So Taylor, why are we on the beach? I get the whole thing of like she's happy and smiling now. I get the seagulls from her sweater now escaping and being in the air. Like, yes, I've heard all the theories. I understand. I still don't like it. It's the same issue with Red. There's just an element of rebranding and redefining what the original era meant that just doesn't quite sit right with me. And again, it's not really an issue with the album. It's more of just my own personal beef with things. And so this video is my excuse to talk about it. But ultimately, it's just me being dramatic. So with that, let's get into the positives. All the vault tracks absolutely slap. These 5 songs genuinely altered my brain chemistry. I don't think you guys understand. It's not even like, yeah, they're mostly good with some standouts. No, that's what the Speak Now vault tracks were like. This is not Speak Now Taylor's version, y'all. This is the big leagues. Every single vault track is individually really good, if not phenomenal, and taken as a unit. This is easily a 10, dare I say 11 out of 10. Wildest Dreams Taylor's version is single-handedly why that song is now in my top 3 Taylor Swift songs. Like, that actually sent me to heaven. Yes, I can complain about all the little details that don't hit exactly the same as the original album, but as I've said before, it never was going to be exactly the same. It's just about, does the project as a whole make me want to come back? Does it reignite something new and a newfound love for the album? And I really do think it does. And even despite the lack of a music video or really anything past the album's release, this still went #1 all the way into 2024. This still shattered the internet. Like, undeniably, 1989 Taylor's version is that girl, and I just didn't think it would be right to put it anywhere else other than #1. So yeah, this was kind of a silly video. I just rambled on and on, all my very incoherent, wrong thoughts about these albums, and I'm just gonna trust editing me to make it sound somewhat coherent, but it probably won't be. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you learned something, and I'm definitely curious to hear how you guys would rank these 4 Taylor's versions, along with what are you most excited about for the rest of this month. Anyways, that's all. See you guys later. Bye!